Hi there, BookTube. My name is Nathan Lambert. This is my channel, The Rambling Reviewer. Uh, I've been away for a while. I just kind of been living, reading, uh, working, but I decided I wanted to make some new videos. I actually did just make 2 videos the other day, but decided not to upload them, to be honest. But I definitely do think I will upload this one. I wanted to talk about the most recent book I have read and finished, which is The Terror by Dan Simmons. Uh, Kind of a quick synopsis, as quick as someone who names their channel The Rambling Reviewer can be. Uh, uh, The Terror is a horror historical novel about the real life Franklin expedition led by Sir John Franklin into the North West Passage, kind of the channels of water between hundreds of islands up above Canada and Alaska, uh, that the Europeans, particularly the British, wanted to get through to find a passage into uh, the Asiatic waters of Russia and China, particularly. And it follows this crew who gets stuck in the ice, and succumb to starvation and uh, hypothermia and scurvy and madness and psychological issues, but also they are being pursued by a giant uh, demonic creature that vaguely uh, that looks like a polar bear. Now, this is based off a true story. Of course, the demonic polar bear is the fictional aspect, while the true aspect is that there really was 2 ships, the Terror and the Erebus, who were headed by Sir John Franklin, and it got stowed in, and everyone either died or disappeared. Presumably, almost certainly died up there in the cold, harsh landscape. Um, it's not the only fictional aspect of the story. It also uh, creates tensions and characterizations and backstories for some of the characters that might not all be true. I know some of it is true, uh, but I'm not sure to what extent it's historically accurate. But it does make me want to learn more about the Franklin expedition and also about other aspects of the story, such as the Inuit culture, because the expeditioners meet a young woman whose tongue has been ripped out. One of the big mysteries of the story is what happened to her tongue. So she's completely mute, so they call her Lady Silence. And she is an Eskimo person, an Inuit woman, who they keep on board the ship after they, by accident, kill her father. And some of the Eskimo, sorry, some of the Inuit culture aspects are very much, I think, fictionalized, dramatized. Although I'm not sure to what degree which aspects are true. I know the Toonbach, which is the Inuit name for the creature, the giant polar bear, is a fictional entity. Like, I mean, it's in fictional, not just as in it's not real, but it's fictional within the fact that it's not an Inuit. It's not a thing in Inuit mythology. It's created by Dan Simmons. Um, the book is quite long, 600 and 766 pages, sorry. I was off by about 100 pages. It's about 766 pages, and Dan Simmons goes into a lot of detail. It actually reminded me a lot, in several ways, of my favorite novel, Moby Dick. Both concerning a doomed expedition, both concerning a white creature, which is in one sense natural, but also preternatural. Uh, both have kind of tragically flawed leaders, uh, and both have pretty long digressions. Although Moby Dick's digressions are much more obscure and much more strange and much more poetic. The writing of Moby Dick is much more beautiful, and is why I particularly love that book, even though it will go into weird divulgences on cetology, for instance, or the history of whaling, or the different kinds of blubber. By comparison, the prose of this is much more straightforward. It's not bad. It's not. It doesn't have that beauty to it. Which I kind of wish it did. That was one thing where I was kind of sad that there wasn't that kind of very beautiful, poetic language to describe the scenery or anything around them, but particularly the natural scenery. Um, but what this book lacks from there, it makes up for in horror, tension, and in character. Um, a lot of the characters in this are quite interesting. It does do a good job at explaining the backstory of our other central characters. Fitzjames, to a degree, but also Crozier, who's the main character. He is the captain of the Terror. Sir John Franklin. Sir John Franklin is the leader of the entire expedition. Underneath him, on board the Erebus, is Commander Fitzjames, probably say Fitzgerald, and Crozier on the Terror. And there are numerous other characters. There is the surgeon, Dr. Goodsir. There is John Irving, who kind of falls in love with Lady Silence. There is Cornelius Hickey, who is kind of the villain, the human villain, and a giant, dumb man-child named Magnus Manson. There is Diggle, the cook, and Ice Master Blanky, and Peglar, and John Bridgens, and quite a handful of other characters. It is kind of difficult to keep them all. Keep up with all of them, but spoiler alert, as the book goes on, that list whittles down. And the last 200, maybe it's more like 300 pages, are brutal. They're horrifying, because, again, you know how this is going to end. You basically know. There might be a few flights of fancy, but you know that everyone, or at least mostly everyone on this ship, is doomed. And it's tragic. You see people who you like pass, and it is hard. I won't. That's not a spoiler, I don't think, because that's kind of. Again, I've already told you what the real world story of this is, so unless Dan Simmons completely rewrites the entire history and basically pulls something out of his ass, then they're all gonna die. So, sorry, but I'm not gonna do a spoiler alert on that one. But I won't tell you who dies, and I won't tell you in what way they die, or when they die, or anything like that. Because I think that would be a spoiler, kind of the tension and the suspense of not knowing when and how characters will shuffle off their mortal coils. The I'm gonna veer some more into spoiler territory here, so before you go, if you don't want to hear that, just my basic thought, it's good. It's really good. I highly recommend it. Uh, the supernatural aspect is not as thrilling, I think, as the human elephant element. Both the psychological darkness within some of the people, the societal interactions, and also the characters' backstories, as well as the natural element, the natural horror of scurvy and starvation and frost. It is horrifying. That part is horrifying. By comparison, the gruesome deaths caused by the Toonbach are not tame, but easier to read. It's a lot easier to read about some person whose head got lopped off by a giant polar bear than a person who slowly succumbed to scurvy and bled out of every orifice in their body. At least for me, I don't think I'm in the minority there at all. Um, the book is very bleak, so if you don't want to read something that's bleak, don't read it. The book can be very gruesome, so if you don't want to read something that's gruesome, don't read it. But if you like historical fiction, if you like horror fiction, particularly if you like horror fiction in an Arctic setting, like At the Mountains of Madness, or The Saint from Another World, or the short story that was based on Who Goes There, or the movie John Carpenter's Thing, which was adapted from The Saint from Another World. If you like anything like that, or if you like Moby Dick, or nautical fiction in general, or polar expedition fiction, or adventure fiction, I would highly recommend this. This last little bit, I want to talk a bit about something that is definitely a spoiler, though, and that is that I think this book kind of doubles in a lot of ways as a spiritual adventure. The main character, Crozier, uh, throughout the book goes through kind of a spiritual journey, which is kind of mirrored both in another character. I think of Cornelius Hickey's descent into madness, into narcissism and depravity, and in the physical journey, first on the ship to through the polar waters and then across land when they get stowed in. But I really liked that spiritual journey. You find out the character has something called second sight, so basically some form of prescience, very similar to something like in The Shining. But and that he dreams the dreams of other people, and he has the ability to communicate with other people. With the Eskimo woman later on, and I liked that aspect. I also liked towards the end you get some more details of the Eskimo culture, the Inuit culture. Him and Lady Silence marry, and he becomes a member of her tribe, and you get some mythological details on the Toonbach and on the goddess Sedna, which is a goddess I've always been very interested in within Inuit mythology, being a big fan of myths and legends and folklore. I liked all that. One aspect I did not like was the use of the primary Inuit and basically the only woman character in the entire story. I thought she was really underused, and I didn't mind that so much when it was just focused on the expeditioners. But then when there was a scene where after Lady Silence saves the dying Crozier, he had been shot by Cornelius Hickey, fatally wounded, and then the surgeon had been abducted to basically serve as a butcher for the Hickey's group to used to prepare and chop up the meat of their dead brethren. It is extremely dark and extremely messed up. But after this happens, Lady Silence takes him and they go far to... Well, you don't actually know where they go. They go far away. And he's asleep for weeks, if not months. Comes in and out of consciousness, dreams about the goddess Sedna and about the Toonbach, and dreams in a language that's not his own, and basically dreams her memories, and her songs. They have sex. And to me, I didn't particularly like that aspect. I thought it was almost like a fetishization of her becoming just kind of a sexual object for him. I may be wrong about that, but it just it didn't work for me. I didn't mind the fact that he became a member of the annual community, became more spiritual. He's very much irrational at the beginning. In fact, I kind of liked that, but I didn't like the way in which it happened. And I also didn't mind the fact that Lady Silence saved him. I was fine with that. I just didn't like the romantic element, which I felt was kind of forced, and the sexual element, which I thought was kind of forced in the last 50 pages, particularly when the character of Lady Silence, up to that point, is kind of just a mystery. She doesn't really show any... She shows some emotion, she shows some stuff, particularly in regards to John Irving, the only person who treats her decently, at least. But I just wasn't... I just wasn't crazy about that aspect. And the Cornelius Hickey is another character who I thought was very shallow. He's the villain. He's also a gay man. Him and Madness Manson are bunkmates, to say it mildly, euphemistically. And as Irving says, they're sodomites. And I didn't mind the fact that there were villains and gay. There is another pairing, two men who are gay, who are heroes, who are in fact extremely brave. Well, one of them is extremely brave. The other one is pretty openly kind of a coward and a scholar. But they're good people. So I didn't mind that too much, but I thought his character was very, very shallow, very kind of cartoonishly villainous. And I would have liked to have seen more complexity. And I don't particularly mean that he had to have had, like, you know, the modern day kind of forced reason for villainy. You know, like, oh, he was abused as a child or whatever. But maybe just having some more depth to his character. Maybe seeing more of a descent for him. There's definitely descent, but not really a moral descent. It's more of a descent into madness. Maybe seeing a moral descent, like maybe at the beginning he's not as cruel, maybe at the beginning he's not as conniving, and then he becomes more so as it goes on. Would have been maybe a better way to go about it, coupled with that madness perspective. Those are minor gripes I have, though. The bulk of this book was really good. The last 300 pages or so are particularly... like from about the last 300 pages to the last 50 pages, when they bring the romantic element, I really loved. It's tragic, it's bleak, though. But I do not own this. This is a library book. I will definitely want to get a copy of this, though, probably from Thrift Books. And also, I would like to get a copy of some books both on Inuit culture, books on the Franklin expedition, and on and more books about Arctic horror, and maybe some fantasy or horror books revolving around Inuit culture, and some more stuff by Dan Simmons, because all those kind of threads are things I would like to follow. One book I do have that I think I will read relatively soon, possibly for Nonfiction November, though, up here. In the Heart of the Sea by Nathaniel Philbrick, same guy who actually did the notes and the introduction for this copy of Moby Dick, which is a wonderful copy of Moby Dick. So I've actually started reading this before. I've mentioned before that I tend to do something where I try to read too many things and then I fall out of them. And I'm trying to get better about that because it largely stems from anxiety, I think. And so I've been doing better about it these last few months. So I would like to return to this in November and read it. But the next book I will be doing, another book that I have started before, and I'm going to be restarting, I think. It's been long enough that I would like to get it into my memory, and plus it's relatively short. Is right over here. And that is Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is the Penguin edition. I really enjoyed what I read of it when I did read it. Again, I just kind of fell off because I was trying to read too much at once. So I'm very much looking forward to actually finishing this. So, I will hopefully have that out within a couple of days. I'll probably start on it tonight. Hopefully get it done by October 31st, or maybe like the 1st or 2nd of November. And I will let all you know what I think. Have a great rest of your October, great rest of your day, and a happy Halloween, of course. Bye.